Hello, and on behalf of Norfolk Tortoise Club and Tortoise Welfare UK, Justin and Eleanor are going to be talking about little Florence, who's under the lamp in this vivarium. Unfortunately, Florence has come to the club because her family have had to move into a smaller house and don't have access to a garden. So they feel that it's better that she's going to be rehomed to someone who can give her a bit more space and time. As you can see, her enclosure is a little bit small now. She's 2 years old. They've had her for 8 months in total, and in that time obviously she would have grown a bit, so she's also going to need a larger space. This is just a mini guide as to things that you can do to help improve a tortoise's enclosure. So I'm just going to pass the camera to Justin, and I'm going to open the enclosure and introduce you to Florence. So Florence, as you can see, for those of you who know, is a Hermann's tortoise. She's been farmed in Slovenia, which is quite common now in the pet trade. So captive bred, which means she's legal and has paperwork, but just means that she's been farmed and then imported and sold into the pet trade. Now, at first glance she looks absolutely fine, but there are little telltale signs that maybe there's a few things that could have been done to help her grow a little bit more healthily sort of over the last few months. First thing you can look at is these 3 plates should really be roughly the same size, particularly these 2. And you can see there's a smaller plate here. This is a bit like with dogs, where their hips go first if in old age and weakness. As a tortoise is growing, if this doesn't develop properly, it's a sign that there's a deficiency in calcium and vitamin D3, which they need from the sun to absorb calcium in order to have healthy bones. The other thing is, Florence is actually looking quite dry on her skin. Okay, and I'm going to be talking a bit more about that now. We know that Florence is a girl, because she's got a little stumpy short tail, but again, you can see, I don't know how well, but slightly dry skin. She should be more hydrated than that. She's also got a little bit of ridging to her shell growth as well, which again can be related to how you're looking after your tortoise. So if we zoom back, Justin, if we just have a look at the enclosure a bit. So we'll just put Florence back in here for a minute. Okay, so at the moment we've got just a 60-watt spot lamp, which is great for Florence to get nice and warm, because they love to sunbathe, real heat worshippers. So this is really good, and it's nice and close, so there would be a tiny bit of UV output from this, but sort of very small compared to natural sunlight. Nothing better than natural sunlight. The only problem is Florence should also have vitamin D3 through a UV strip. When you're outside on nice days, there's nothing better than natural sunlight, and that one thing I would advise is, if you have a tortoise, as soon as you get sunny day, straight outside, you're looking at double the level of UV from sunshine compared to UV strip. The other thing is, Florence's UV strip hasn't been changed in 6 months, so there's a good chance that this isn't throwing up much UV. Now what I've just done is I've just unclipped the UV strip, because at the moment her UV strip's been a foot high at the top of the vivarium. UV strips unfortunately have to be sort of 2 or 3 inches away from a tortoise in order to make sure that they're actually benefiting from the UV that's set off. The further away you are from a UV strip, the less UV output you're going to get. So that's something that you can do instantly if you have a tortoise. Like, obviously this isn't ideal having the bulb really close, but this is something, if you have a setup at home, make sure that your UV strip's nice and close. And if it's more than 6 months old, you really need to think about getting a new one, because you lose efficiency very quickly. The other thing is, Florence is on allergy-friendly sawdust. Now, although it's quite nice to sort of burrow in and climb over, this is very dusty and also very dry. Unfortunately for Florence, she can't cough because she's got a solid chest, so this isn't ideal, because obviously this is an opportunity for her to maybe get breathing problems and maybe be a bit get a bit of discomfort. The other thing is, it's going to mean that she's going to dry out a lot quicker with this heat lamp. So it's a bit like being in an oven, but sort of not having any moisture. So one thing that would be best to do is actually change this for just normal multi-purpose compost and play pit sand. But this is something that maybe to do later, because another thing you've got to do is bear in mind that maybe Florence is used to this, so you've got to do it in stages. So we're going to leave that for the moment. One thing we can look at, she's been fed lettuce, which is absolutely fine for water, but it's not got much fibre and nutrition in it. So it's fine as part of the diet, but not for everything. So again, bearing in mind, you know, you've got to wean tortoises onto things, and it can take a while to get them round. It's not harmful like broccoli or cabbage, which is very fattening for a tortoise. But one thing that we can do instantly is actually dust vitamin, mineral, calcium on. So this is a supplement, extra D3, which again is what the UV strip's giving off, but supplementing it in another level. So I'll do that now. So here's a common brand that you can dust on. Another one that you can use is Reptivite, lots of different brands, and lightly dust that on. Okay, but then another thing we can do is introduce plants that you can easily buy at the garden centre. This is honeysuckle. Okay, a little bit of strawberry leaf, and also butterfly plant, Buddleia butterfly plant. Now this is something that she might not take to you straight away, but it's always important to try and offer variety because you need lots of fibre to keep the gut nice and healthy. The other thing that we've got is she's not had much access to calcium, and some of you may know that tortoises try and pick up rocks in the garden sometimes. Now that's because they're trying to get more chalk in their diet. So this is the solid version of limestone, of the supplement that's going on the food. So we can also put tortoise chalk in.
You just stream it straight off, apparently, in the database of all the movie streams.